Hello there, people of the internet. It's amazing that I have to make this video, and I guess I don't necessarily have to, but I want to. I have a lot of different stuff, and I've shown off a good variety of all sorts of different firearms on this YouTube channel, and I get a lot of people that ask me, why do you have so many guns? And I'm like, oh, so I can have a bunch of different calibers. And originally, whenever I started collecting firearms, that was what I wanted. I wasn't necessarily all that concerned with the firearms themselves. And I remember my family, specifically my father, being upset with my collection of guns because my collection of guns had just a variety of different calibers, and he wanted his guns to be all in the same caliber. Like, if we have a bunch of 7.62 by 39 guns, then all we have to do is go out and get a brick of 7.62 by 39, and then we can run all these different guns with that ammo. And I'm like, yeah, fantastic. If that's what you want to do, then by all means go ahead and do it. But I wanted things in as many chamberings as possible. This way, if something happens and I can't acquire a specific type of ammunition off of the commercial market, odds are, if I do find a type of ammunition that I can either buy off the commercial market or potentially even find if I'm in, I don't know, some sort of bad situation and out scavenging or I mean, I get that that's not a very realistic standpoint or whatnot, but hyperbole, guys. Look up the definition of hyperbole. But if something happens and I can't get the mainstream ammunition that I'm used to getting, then odds are I have something else that I can get ammo for. Like, for a while, actually, here's a really good example. For a while there in like 2020, ammunition like, say, 9mm was completely unobtainable for a long time, and whenever you did find it, it was like $1 a round. And I was like, holy crap, I'm not spending that amount of money on a 9mm. So if all I had was 9mm handguns just for the sake of having the same ammunition to running all my firearms across the board, then I'd be completely SOL. I wouldn't have any ammunition to run in anything else. So other types of ammunition, like, say, 40 Smith & Wesson, this stuff really didn't disappear. But since we have an influx of 40 Smith & Wesson LEO trade-in handguns on the market right now, maybe this ammo would disappear because there's a lot more guns out there chambered in 40 Smith & Wesson now than there was, say, 5 years ago. So if that disappears, then guess what? I got myself some 45 ACP. But maybe something goes so bad that even 45 ACP disappears. 9mm, 40, and 45 ACP, those are all the most common handgun cartridge here in the United States. And if any of them were to disappear, it would probably be those three if things were to get really, really bad and people started just absolutely panic buying as much ammo as they possibly could, which they have done basically every 4 years. Gee, I wonder why. But if something like that happens, then I have several other handguns and several other calibers. Like, I got 38 and 357, which I'm sure would also vanish, but I've also got like 44s, like the 44 Magnum. I got 45 Long Colt. I got 455 Webley. I got 32 Smith & Wesson, 38 Smith & Wesson. Point is, I have a bunch of different options that would allow me to be able to find some sort of ammunition, I'm sure, to be able to rock in some sort of handgun in the event that I didn't have access to my stockpile anymore. Like, I don't know, house went up in flames, natural disaster, tornado, something happens, and I don't have access to my stuff, and I can't get anything on the commercial market. Like, life happens. Or something happens, and say we can't get 5.56 anymore, which again is one of those things that disappeared. 5.56 was like over $1 a round for a good while, and whenever you did find it, which was really rare, like, it was just really, really difficult to find. So after that disappeared, I noticed that 308 started to disappear as well. So if you had a 308 rifle and a 5.56 rifle, odds of you finding ammunition for those rifles just was not very good. Maybe you would go out and, I don't know, what's a good example? Like 303 British. 303 British is uncommon enough to the point to where I don't think that it would really disappear off the shelves in any sort of panic buying scenario or situation. Unlike something like 7.62 by 54R, which I still don't think would disappear completely, but there's enough people out there with Mosins and whatnot, just from how cheap they were like a decade ago, that I think that a lot of that ammo would disappear too. Or we got some 8mm Mauser. You can get 8mm Mauser pretty gosh darn regularly, even surplus. And if I didn't have access to my AR with my 5.56 or even a 308 rifle, something like this Hakim semi-auto 8mm Mauser, yes, it's weird looking, yes, it's heavy, yes, it's not exactly the most ergonomic of design, but I could probably find ammo for it. Even in the worst of times, if I were to come across some 8mm Mauser, be like, oh, I have a semi-auto 8mm Mauser rifle, so it would be able to run that stuff just fine. Or even like 7.5 French. Oh, this box of 7.5 French is over here, and it's all dusty and hasn't been touched in the past 5 years sitting on the gun store shelves, but they don't have any 308 or 5.56. But I have a 7.5 French rifle, and a 7.5 French semi-auto rifle, although, yes, it's not quite as on par with any of the modern military-style firearms, it would still be quite the force to be reckoned with. Or if I don't know, let's say I want to touch on to some really long ranges, and things are bad, and everybody went out and they bought all the 6.5 Creedmoor, and I'm like, oh no, 6.5 Creedmoor's gone off the shelves, like I don't have any. Well, I got this 6.5 Swiss rifle, or 6.5 Swede, and 6.5 Swede is pretty much on par with that of 6.5 Creedmoor. The factory loadings are a little less powerful than they're supposed to be, but a proper hand-loaded 6.5 Swede is one serious force to be reckoned with, and you can touch out to some pretty significant distances with something like that. But my point is that if the mainstream ammunition that we have available to us on the civilian market, if that stuff disappears, and let's be honest here, when it disappears, because things will get bad again at some point, like we can't just say that throughout the rest of human history things will never be bad again. Things will get bad again at some point. And if it's within my lifetime, and I lose access to the ammunition that we would normally have access to, I would want to be able to have access to some kind of ammunition with some sort of rifle. And having as many firearms as possible, chambered in as many things as possible, would be the best way to be able to do that. I mean, you go down to your local sporting store and it's panic buying season because 4 years have passed and everyone's freaking out over the next big thing that's coming. And you look on the shelves and the ammo shelves are empty like we have absolutely seen before, and all that's left is some oddball stuff, and you're like, oh, 6.5 Swede, I got a rifle for that, or oh, 303 British, I got a rifle for that, or oh, 30 caliber carbine, I've got one of those, and I know that it's quite the effective cartridge within the distances that I would ever need to shoot a firearm at, or oh, insert XYZ cartridge here, 8mm Mauser, maybe they got some 6.5 Carcano, take your pick. Take your pick of what sort of ammunition you might potentially come across that basically no one else is going to be touching in whatever gun store it is that you go to. And just having access to some sort of firearm chambered in that ammunition is a much, much better way to go, in my personal opinion, than having, say, 10 ARs chambered in 5.56, and then you can't find any 5.56 ammo, so you have like 10 paperweights. Just my 2 cents on what I think is the best way to go, because you always want to have access to some sort of ammunition, otherwise your rifle is no good. So that's why I go through and I get things chambered in as many different things as possible. Actually, that's a really good example back there. I see my 7.5 Swiss rifle back there. And there for a while during 2020, I was running 7.5 Swiss ammunition instead of 308 through those rifles, through specifically those rifles. I have a 1896/11 back there that I would run. But I couldn't find 308 ammo to save my life, but I was doing things that required full power rifle ammo, and that was just what I had at the time. And my local gun store had a big old pile of 7.5 Swiss, and so that's what I stocked up on, and that's what I used. So that's a really, really good example, actually. So hopefully you guys understand what it is that I'm trying to say and what it is that I'm trying to mean here. All of that being said, thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you on the next episode.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.